Hello and welcome. I think we are live. Not 100% sure because according to my screen, we're not showing anything. But okay, I think we're good. Um, First and foremost, welcome. Welcome to Angela and Then Some. Tonight's topic it's going to be what does health and wellness really mean? We're going to discuss that, and we're going to kind of figure out what that really means for us, I guess, on the individual scale, maybe on some big scales. But yeah, we're just going to discuss that, and I hope everyone is having a good time. And yeah, so let's just get into it. First and foremost, I would like to know to all who are currently on the live or whatnot, what is most important to you currently in your life? Is it physical fitness or, physical health, mental health, or emotional health? Um, For me personally, I'm trying to find balance in all of those. Physically, I'm definitely not where I would like to be, and I think some of us can agree for that sometimes our physical health may take a dive depending on what our life circumstances are, um, be it from life, either lifestyle changes that need to be made, or I would say, or either lifestyle changes that need to be made, maybe lifestyle circumstances and things like that that occur. So I think for me personally, I'm trying to find balance, but I'm also trying to get healthy much more physically than I currently am. So that's also mental health. I'm trying to find what are actually my uh, mental blocks that are probably not helping me succeed in the physical health and everything like that. And then, so emotional balance and all that ties into there. So online, we see a lot of six pack abs, super in shape people, maybe biohacking gadgets, supplements that sometimes are suspiciously extra expensive than we think they should be. But for most of us, health might mean something more practical and personal. So that's why I wanted to discuss health and wellness today to kind of figure out what it means for us, what it means to you, and kind of pinpoint the value system in that and maybe see where we can change some things, tweak things a little bit here and there, and trying to figure out how we can, share our knowledge and share our concerns and then things that we've all figured out maybe as time has gone on, what has worked for others, what has worked for you, what has worked for me personally, and go from there. So hopefully we find this discussion interesting and informative, and also showing that we're all in this kind of together. So going back to like social media, I think we've all seen like back in the day, I think it was like Arnold and other bodybuilders. I'm not up on all the bodybuilding. I probably would recognize pictures more than I know names. But I think back in the day, bodybuilding became kind of the thing that people picked up on, I guess, would be the way to say that. And that kind of became the ideal body image thing of like, particularly for men or those who are more masculine, to be like super buff, sometimes ridiculously buff. And then as the time has progressed now with the age of social media, the internet becoming such a thing, there is like fitness influencers in general, but particularly health, wellness, and fitness influencers. I think a lot of us have seen. Maybe some of us who maybe aren't on that area of the internet too much don't even realize some of the people that come across our screens are quote unquote, fitness influencers or health influencers. We just see them as someone talking about health and wellness. For me personally, whenever I see a fitness influencer or someone in that realm who's saying like 20 something, either male or female, but has not had any serious injuries or disabilities or anything like tragic or, just like luck of the draw happened to them, I'm like, yeah, of course you're in shape. Why are you not in shape? I just see it as personally like, yeah, of course you're in shape. Your hormones are doing great. You're 20 something or maybe even 30 something, but like I said, hormones doing great. You aren't talking about like, oh, I went through a thing and like an accident or childbirth multiple times or all these other things. And so I'm like, be in shape. Awesome. Good for you. So in that regard, it's kind of like, have influencers made us feel less healthy than we actually are? Because I think depending, like I said, on the social media aspect and the algorithm, if you interact with that content or not, we may see a lot of like super in shape bodies or seemingly super in shape bodies, since we only seeing the curated version that they're putting out online. So that could definitely make us feel a little less than, or maybe we're not doing our best, even though, the best you're doing your best is definitely subjective in that regard. So yeah, so there's like that comparison trap, I guess, or um, not getting the right motivation or the right content in front of you. But I also think depending on what influencers, what health and fitness or wellness people may show up in our online lives, there is motivation that can be had there, because there are certain people that maybe they have or had a disability of some sort, or they did really gain a lot of weight, they lost a lot of weight, they actually have credentials to be a coach, or somewhere in the fitness realm where they've actually worked at learning things and figuring things out. It's also if they've worked with, clients and other people who have been overweight, disabilities, hormones that are a factor. I think that can be very inspiring in a good way. I particularly enjoy like Shaun T. He's originally from like Beachbody. Well, he still is with Beachbody, or now known as Body, BODI. His thing is that, he had a lot of trauma growing up, and he's discussed that over the years because he actually, dealt with that. In the beginning, it was about, I think his journey was learning how to feel better in his body, and that happened to be dancing and getting in shape and being like a dancer and all this stuff. And then that eventually led him to being getting a deal with Body, where they had him do, I think you may know, Insanity. It was a big thing back in like the early 2000s, P90X and Insanity. He did Insanity. And then as the years progressed, his own journey progressed, and he kind of became his own expert, more or less, like an influencer in his own right, not just tied to Body or Beachbody, but yeah, so I've seen things of his. I follow him particularly. I've seen his stuff where he discusses, his childhood traumas and stuff like that, and getting comfortable with himself, his body, and then also, so therapy, all that good stuff. So emotional what balance as well as mental health. He advocates for that as well. And I think just recently, maybe this past year, he officially did like a bodybuilding competition. So since I follow his stuff, I was able to see more of the bodybuilding world in that aspect. And also him talking about like these things just don't happen overnight. They take a lot of dedication, but also the fact that during all that, I think before his bodybuilding competition stuff, he did a Beachbody program called like Let's Get Up or something, where it was more like fitness for everybody, back to being dancing and just being joyful with your body and moving it and stuff. So it was kind of getting back to his roots of being like, fitness is for everybody, everybody. So that was the whole point of that. So I really enjoy that aspect of the algorithm, society, um, fitness influencers, health and wellness people, and the like, deciding to, realize the other end of the spectrum of like health and wellness. Everything is kind of a spectrum, and depending on where you are physically and depending where you actually want to go, mentally, physically, emotionally, there's a long pathway to get there, and depending on where you're going. So that's someone who definitely inspired me, and I enjoy their content. So if you also think that would be up your alley, Shanti, Shaunt. um, and then furthermore, we can talk into not only the health, wellness, fitness influencer sphere, but also longevity and biohacking. That's something that as I started trying to get back into shape after having my daughter and my body just going, I decided to look into that. So definitely someone like Bryan Johnson came up. He's the guy trying to live forever, quote unquote. But he's also a millionaire. I'm not sure if a billionaire, I think millionaire is accurate. Who like lost not a lot of weight, like he wasn't, I don't think obese or anything, but he was overweight, but got extremely healthy and started trying to figure out what stuff actually moves the markers in health and wellness in the sense of longevity, living longer and stuff like that. So that goes into like biohacking, where people are trying to like hack the system of your body to figure out like what calories are actually needed, what food actually is the most optimal, what helps cell turnover, from facials to actual like red light therapy to like just normal get enough sleep, and what's the actual sweet spot, or like some people doing like 4 hours of sleep and then like 2 hours awake and then 4 hours of sleep again. Like it's a whole system of trying to figure out not only what works for you, what seems to work for a lot of people, and what, if I guess, even if it just works for you or a small subset of people, is still considered a hack and something to try out to see if, hey, maybe it worked for you and you're one of those lucky people that it's sustainable also. But I also think the problem with this is the focus seems to be, even Bryan Johnson's movement, the like slogan is "Don't die," which I kind of had a problem with when I first heard it, as kind of has a negative connotation to it, and more like "keep living" or "stay alive" or "life" or something would have been better, since it would have been more positive. Um, but it seems like more the focus in those circles may be on living longer rather than living better. And for me, it's not necessarily quantity, but quality of life that is, I guess, the better aspect. Like, if you had the chance to live like 20 more years, but you had to be like super strict with your diet, with your routines, would you do it, type of thing? And um, let me know in the chat if yes, you would do it. Super strict, like you had to go to bed like 8:30 in the morning or 8:30 at night. You had to get up at 5 in the morning. You had to do a 2 hour like workout routine. Obviously, you would get in shape to be able to do that routine, be it mobility, stretching, weightlifting, cardio. But then maybe having the strict diet of like, these are the 3 to 4 meals you eat every single day. I mean, would you do that for 20 more years? I guess it would depend on the quality of those 20 more years and how maybe poor the quality of your life may be if you have some sort of disability or health issue, where it's kind of like, yes, if I don't do this, I'll only have like 2 more years or 5 more years, and the quality will be like detrimentally not as good. So I think would I do it? Depends. If could you modify this super strict to be semi strict, and then now you only get like 12 or 15 quality years, then I guess, there could be. I think that's my biggest problem with the Bryan Johnson blueprint. It's just the modifications of it, of realizing I'm not a millionaire. I think a lot of us are not millionaires. So having that ability to just be like, my chef makes my meals, and these are the 4 meals I do. I can do all the blood work I can, and like no problem every 3 months, like clockwork, because I not only have amazing health insurance, but I could pay out of pocket for it. And I think a lot of us are not there. So it's kind of like, how do you translate someone like Bryan Johnson's blueprint into like everyday life stuff? So I think that's something important that also needs to be looked into and like modified. And that's kind of something on the side, my own personal thing that I've been looking into, to be like, okay, let's be realistic. How do you modify this for normal human beings? And I think when it comes to like quality of life or quantity of life, it also comes to the scarier aspect of like losing physical health or losing mental wellness. Because sometimes, depending on where you are in your life or your extreme end of things, that's a serious, risk. So for those watching in the chat, or for those who are watching this at a later date, put in the comments, what's scarier, losing physical health or losing mental wellness? For me personally, I have had depression and anxiety pretty much since about 8 or 9 years old. Pretty much when hormones started changing, it started creeping up on me that I was like, "Oh, this is anxiety." I'm like, "Oh, this is depression." Hello. Kind of like the movie Inside Out, where they became your friends in your head. Like those are some of the strongest characters in there. So I know what mental unwellness feels like, and mental wellness feels like the spectrum that is life. I know what those feel like. Um, and considering after having my daughter, and my physical health and wellness, like hormones, I have PCOS. So that's kind of a thing that I have to keep track of to kind of figure out, are my hormones good, or am I losing too much hair this past few months? Maybe I need to check some things to make sure something isn't out of whack. So I honestly think losing mental wellness. Because obviously, what you can see of me, and also the reality is physically, I'm not the thinnest lady. I'm not the strongest lady anymore. I'm still trying. So we're working out, we're getting stronger, we're learning what works for me now, since the things that worked for me in my 20s are not necessarily things that will work for me in my 30s, like healthily work for me. You could push it and force, but let's, find out what health means to us and actually like in that spectrum of health. So yeah, I think losing mental wellness would be more of the scarier aspect, because although for someone with a lot of self-awareness, I think you can kind of keep yourself on an even keel of when maybe if you're mentally unwell, you know what your signs of that are. But yeah, I think that would be a little bit scarier because things can get real weird real fast. We have Ricardo in the chat. That said, I view mental health. You may be able to see it on the screen, but I view mental health as more detrimental. But I was born with a healthy, functioning body, so I understand I am privileged in that way. So I think that has something to do with it. Yeah, it's kind of one of those. It's kind of like earlier in the conversation when I was discussing like influencers and things. Um, when someone hasn't had a disability or some incident or accident or something that they had to overcome, I'm like, yes, you're in great shape. You kind of should be if you want to work out and you're in your 20s or 30s and nothing detrimental has happened and you're making this your thing, then yes, you should be in shape. But yeah, so yes, the privilege of being born in a healthy body. Me personally, I think I was born in a healthy body. Um, Ricardo then states, but people with disabilities, whether they are born with them or they develop them later in life, may have good mental health and outlook despite, yes. I think that's something even doctors and studies have shown that mental health helps a lot with physical health. Not only like the placebo effect of, getting medication that actually isn't doing anything, but suddenly you're feeling better. But mental health definitely plays a role in physical health and emotional health. Sorry, reading the notes to make sure I'm flowing. Yeah, I think going into like mental and emotional wellness, depending on what that means for us. Currently in our system of capitalism, late stage capitalism, I remember like in the 2010s going on, I was in my 20s. So I remember the hustle culture type of thing, like those memes and the social media aspect of things being called about like hustling, doing your side hustle, like getting your side gig going and all that. And I see now algorithmically and social media wise, that's definitely still around. But I see those like 5 to 25% of like those pop-ups pretty much people talking about like you don't need to make your hobby extra income, like realizing how toxic and kind of like that's messed up for like a decade, people thinking I need to monetize everything I do, including my hobbies, when hobbies are meant to be just the little thing you do on the side for funsies or to learn a new skill or just to like have some mindfulness going. So that's kind of was it the stress culture, and then you've seen like burnout. I think during COVID, especially when a lot of people, I think in the general sphere of things, people weren't sure how serious it actually was or how serious it could be, depending on your physical ability, your own physical health and wellness to begin with, or for some people the luck of the draw, depending on like numerous factors. When companies said, "Hey, just stay home, you can remote in from work," and then a lot of people started. I think there was like the whole baking bread and doing like a lot of those little hobbies and activities that people had, I guess, forgotten about. Ricardo states, so the way I see it, despite of or because of late stage capitalism, the average person or worker has access to all the knowledge and resources to live a long, healthy life. Yes, I agree. You have access to the resource to live a long, healthy life, but do you have the time, the energy, the mental fortitude, even the critical thinking skills to uh, figure it all out, to know where to start, or even the overwhelm of figuring out where to start in your life? Personally, I think the first start is, did you get enough water? Like, hydration. Really taking a look at what you're eating, all that good stuff, how you're feeling, maybe is the better aspect. 'Cause a lot of people, if you're not intuitively in tune with like your whole system, you may just have to sit there and be like, what do I feel a lot of the time? And you may realize I'm tired a lot. And then you may be thinking, I need to drink more water because you realize like, yeah, or I'm tired a lot. I slept till noon today, or I got up at like 5 to do work and I went to sleep like at 2. So those are like the small steps of overwhelm and things like that, that even though people have access to things, sometimes the things cost money. So then that's a problem. But obviously you could always, walk or work out. Like I personally don't like gyms. I don't put me in a room full of people working out. I don't want to do it. I tried going to the gym once or a couple times, and I did. I was doing 5 a.m. and 5:30 in the morning, and I was thinking it shouldn't be busy. But sure enough, there was plenty of people in that gym, and I'm like, where? Why? Go home. And there was also like a women's section, so I thought, okay, the women's section. And sure enough, on normal, like I think 2 out of the 5 days, the women's section was, like empty. So I was like, okay, cool. But then like some of those days, they were just like, this where all the ladies just decide 5:30 a.m. on Tuesday and Thursday, you're showing up. And I'm just like, dang it. But yeah, and then also I just wasn't comfortable just exploring the gym. I pretty much found an area on the weird catwalk top of the gym, the second story, away where no one else wanted to work out because the weird catwalk area. And I was like, yep, these are the machines I'm going to use. But I personally enjoy working out. So one, I'm an outlier in the sense that I enjoy working out. So I know a lot of people don't know if they enjoy working out, or kind of like have that high school PE mentality where you're just like, ugh, like you're slogging through and you're just having to do something because someone told you to do something. But I personally enjoy working out. So even my husband likes to remind me I'm an outlier, um, of what I like to do. But I also don't like going to the gyms. I don't want to be told what to do. Like some people need a coach or a fitness instructor, and I'm like, no, 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 don't talk to me. Uh, but like I said, there are all the small steps of like if you can't afford to go to a gym or you don't want to go to a gym, it could be the simple thing of walking in place at home, jogging in place. And my high school years, I remember I did that for a little bit. I ended up jogging in place, just like watching TV. And give me a moment. My voice is getting a little hoarse. Um, I remember walking in place just like when I watch TV and stuff like that. And after my daughter, ugh, I could barely do like 2 or 3 minutes at a time of walking in place before I was just like, oh, my lower back is feeling it, my abs are feeling it. And then I had to figure out how to realign my body to walk properly. I was like just mush. So I guess when it comes to stuff like that, it also goes into like redefining what health and wellness meant to me from my 20s to 30s, and then also redefining what proper rest meant, because like the hustle culture aspect of side gigs and continuing to like monetize your hobbies and try to make more money and things like that. Ricardo says most people are capable, whether physically or mentally. That's why that's what most people are capable, whether physically or mentally. That's why our mental health has become so much more important to a long life due to its side effects, since it's a motivation or even will. Good points there. Yeah, like mental health is even more important because even if you're physically capable, yeah, if you're feeling burnt out, if you're feeling overwhelmed, having the tools in your toolbox more or less to actually identify what you're feeling first and foremost. Identify your feelings, then find like solution oriented instead of being like wallowing in the feelings and being like, well, I'm just gonna go eat a tub of ice cream to feel better, or I'm just gonna go order a pizza, or I'm just gonna sit here and dopamine myself up with a video game, which are all fine in, moderation of you do you, and hobbies and interests like that. But yeah, if the mental health isn't there in the sense of having a toolkit or toolbox of things, like mindfulness practices, or knowing what you're feeling, having felt those before, identified them, your own critical thinking skills in the sense of asking yourself the right questions, and even going to Google and being like, putting in the right keywords or the right questions, more or less. Because if you don't know what you're feeling or how you're feeling, how can you really put that into words and describe it, like even to like a friend or even to a therapist? So yeah, um, I agree. That's why mental health is so important to try to figure out like pretty much have your toolkit, which is one of the things that kind of I feel personally should kind of be taught in elementary school, middle school, high school, and eventually college, and especially be available to take classes for college credit that are like, hey, you're doing meditation, that's weird, but yeah, you're doing psychology or philosophy or sociology or as part of your general ed, and it totally counts, and like do your thing. Um, not obviously not just meditating in a corner, but where they're actually doing like mindfulness practices, journaling prompts, and things like that to get you aware of yourself. Because yeah, aware of yourself. Because I think a lot of people with late stage capitalism and just how our society is kind of like it's kind of pushed on like don't think that far ahead and don't think too much. Just go to the next thing. So yeah, that's my 2 cents in the matter. So yeah, that kind of goes into like, should health be measured by lab results or how you're feeling? I think kind of both. Lab results, obviously, if you actually have something known that it's like quote unquote wrong with you or like something going on, so obviously take care of yourself. But then even like checkups, that should probably, combination of, science and spirituality of like check in with yourself mentally and emotionally to make sure you're feeling good on most days, if not pretty much most days, because not everybody can be 100% all the time. But make sure you're feeling good most days, and then labs and things like that. Just I guess yearly maybe, or every 6 months, depending on what you feel comfortable with. But also that to keep track of things. Doo, doo, doo. So like it maybe true wellness means like peace of mind and not necessarily hustle culture or endless hustle or continuing was it monetization of your hobbies to make more money and stuff like that. Um, so I think that was part of my own journey personally too, is figuring out when to actually rest and what actually wellness meant again. It was hard for me personally because I think I had some nervous system issues as well. Because being a new mom, you hear a baby cry, you're like, oh no, or you think you hear a baby cry and you're like, oh, I gotta go. So it was even the realization over the years that I wasn't even getting like quality sleep, like the base of survival in the sense of get good sleep. I was like, I was asleep, but apparently I was still, active. Like my mind was still like listening. So it's been a struggle. I think now, oddly enough, I'm doing YouTube, but I pretty much am home now that my daughter is older. Just hanging out. No, like doing household things, obviously, because I am the one available here. But I noticed that I tend to take naps during the day, like an hour or two. In the beginning, it was like 4 or 5 hours, and I was concerned. But like I said, I have PCOS. I have other issues going on, so it was rightfully so a concern of being that tired and that fatigued. But we figured some things out. So now it's more like an hour or two. And I realize those are some of my best sleep. And I think it has to do with the fact that no one's home. And not everybody can experience that. I know. But just the fact that no one's home, everything is locked, and things like that. So it really helps with me personally to, I guess, feel safe. And then realizing like that's what I'm feeling. It's like, oh, I feel safe. I feel calm. It's trying to figure out, okay, why in my home when my husband and my daughter are here now, like I said, my daughter is older, so we're not listening to a crying baby. Like I'm not, on alert like that. And I have another adult with me. Why am I still not feeling safe? And I think that goes into mental wellness and the mental health aspect of it, of having your toolkit to be able to realize, like, oh, I'm not feeling safe. Let me look into that and figure out mentally what's going on physically, how that overlaps into that area. And that could be why, like, I think I only recently looked into it where I have like nervous system issues and things like that. I actually have a sister that, in her own strange way, helped me realize, okay, I do need to calm down. I was spending time with them the other day, and she actually came to hug me, but she kind of came a little aggressively at me, and I think purposefully aggressively, like kind of with her hands, like she was going to tickle me, but also like, no, I'm just going to hug you. Uh, but that also made me realize, like, even though I accepted her hug, but I was, at first I was closed off a bit because it made me concerned. But then I realized when the hug was over, I was looking at like the door, and I said, "Look at like I body just like startled a little bit because I seen like a black spot on the door, and I thought it was a bug for a second. And I realized how her coming at me in that playful slash aggressive way kind of just made my nervous system and adrenals get on high alert that quickly, right? So that's something that I realized, and that's something that I realized I'm like, okay, I need to take note of that mental note and also eventually a physical note and write that down that, okay, I need to chill. So I think a lot of us, depending on what we've been through in our lives, may have that nervous system responses to adrenal responses mentally, that we may not, and physically that we may not be aware of. So that kind of goes into the mental, emotional wellness, health and well-being aspect because like I think Ricardo mentioned and stuff like that too, is that a lot of stuff overlaps sometimes. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on that. It's talking a lot and I apologize. Okay. So what's one small thing that you do for your mental health that feels better than any quote unquote hack you've seen online? For me personally, it's identifying that I'm the problem. No, first it's identifying that it is a problem, that something is underlying and going on there has been my quote unquote hack. So pretty much self-awareness, asking myself things. I think much further back in my journey after my daughter, like year 1.5, 2, when I was still struggling with losing weight, but also at the time muscle was even worse, where the muscle was not muscling. I remember also you were feeling your feelings. So I remember not eating the healthiest. I had to actually take a step back, read a book. It was a very short book, but about emotional like wellness and health in the vein of um, like nutrition and eating well. And one of the things it recommended, I think it was called like heart math. It was something like that. It was a weird subset of books that I only picked like that one to read. Um, it was called like heart math, and it was pretty much going down that rabbit hole of like when you're feeling hungry or you're craving something, are you actually hungry? Check in with yourself that you had proper meals throughout the day. Actually ask yourself what you're craving, not just like I need something, but is it sugar, is it salt, is it something savory, is it something, so it may just be water. But like tuning back into yourself. And I think that was something, um, one small thing essentially was that's what I learned is like to tune back into yourself, to ask yourself questions like, and also realize when you're hungry or wanting to eat something. One, I had PCOS, and that's eventually when I found out I had PCOS, insulin resistance, and blood sugar problems and whack levels. So that's when I figured out, oh, my blood sugar was super dipping, and that's why I would get like hangry cravings for sugar and things. So I learned that too. And part of that was figuring out, like asking myself these questions, kind of keeping mental notes of it, maybe writing things down. So then I was able to, when I went to the doctor, I was able to, hey, this is a thing, and they were able to look further into that. Ricardo states, for me, it's scale and time. Most of our problems are big to us, but small relatively, and all things pass. Yep, that is something I've learned too. The ebb and flow of life, pretty much. I think in some of my most intense anxiety moments, when you have to like, it might have been panic attacks, but I really don't know. I'm not sure if I ever had a full blown panic attack or technically what I experienced was okay. Yeah, I think I have. I'm remembering some things, and I'm like, oh no, I'm pretty sure that's technically considered a panic attack. Um, but when you have to learn to ground yourself and breathe through things, I think even later on when I've had illnesses like where I had the stomach flu or I ate something that I didn't know was bad, but apparently it was. It's the ebb and flow of learning to breathe through the pain. And I think also with childbirth that helped where like contraction wise, it will pass. There's an ebb and flow to it. And so just like Ricardo stated, time was it scale and time and all things pass. So yeah, I learned that with life in general, when you're experiencing unpleasant things, is to breathe. I guess, and now in hindsight, when I say breathe, I realize, oh, like grounding yourself because like not running away from what you're feeling, the discomfort, but staying with it, but realizing it's the ebb and flow, like it will pass. You can make it through this. And also like with the stomach flu thing and things like that, I remember recalling past other stomach flus and things where I ate something that was unpleasant in hindsight, and then my body was like, "Nope, get it out." Knowing that I've experienced this before, we can do this type of thing. Ricardo states he finds solaces in the finite. Cool. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, all things eventually pass. So be mindful, maybe enjoy the positives, the good stuff. But then when you're physical pain, mental pain, emotional pain, don't push it away. Feel it because it's there for a reason. Either a teaching moment or or just at the moment, maybe just wow, this sucks. But all things will pass with the ebb and flow of things. Yeah, I agree. So when we go to think about personal definitions of health, like what that actually means to us. Obviously, one health isn't a like one size fits all. I think much earlier in the chat I mentioned it was like a spectrum. Uh, so maybe even spectrum wise, you could be like 10 out of 10, amazing shape, mentally, physically, emotionally, or you can be like real, real bad. But then also finding the spectrum of where you're comfortable at, what is sustainable for you long term. Because overall, you can be like, I was here, I was at the tippy top, but you were only able to stay in that for maybe a month, 2 months, 2 years, maybe even 5 years. But then maybe health issues arose from it or not. But then you realize, you went all the way back down or like pretty lower on the spectrum. So it kind of would have been better if you just stayed at a moderate area for like 20 plus years or 30 years or for the majority of your life. So I think finding your health and wellness spectrum, like actually thinking it through in a way of actually like what are your actions, not just I think not even just goals, because I think goals can kind of mess people up. I know for me they mess me up when I write goals for like health and wellness stuff, particularly body and stuff, physical health. When I write goals, it kind of messes me up into thinking more of like the scale, and so for me, I've kind of changed it less to be more about how I feel, like health and strength, because although strength can be a goal, quote unquote, like I want to be able to like squat this many pounds or things like that. It's less of a finite area for me to reach. And that's for me personally. For some people, a goal will actually help because there is a finite area where like I want to lose 30 pounds. I want to lose 40 pounds, 150. I want to be able to bench press this. I want to be able to run this X amount. So that gives them like a finish line. And obviously once the finish line is hit, either you make a new goal or that becomes your normal and that's your maintenance. So that's also awesome. Like that's where you find what health means to you. Um, and then, like on the health spectrum, for some people it's just like walking without pain. For others, it's like I want to be able to play with like kids or grandkids and not feel exhausted afterwards, but more just like, oh, I'm a little tired, but I'm cool. Or being able to take your dog on a walk and not looking at your dog and you huffing and puffing, but you guys are like, we're cool, we can do this. Um, like so, yeah. So it's really that spectrum of finding out where you want to be and not looking at influencers and those things like that. Some other 20 something, 30 something, or 40 something that has not lived the life you lived, does not have the same lifestyle you have, not does not have the same or goals or even mindset that you have of what you think healthy is. Yeah, for me, it's about strength. Right now, it's about I do want to lose weight because it's less about the aesthetics, I don't know how to pronounce it right, of looking a certain way and more the reality of, yes, being at the weight I am does put some pain on some joints that have already issues. Like I personally have an SI joint issue. So obviously the hips being heavier is like, ooh, some of that fat needs to go like for just joint health. But then also gaining muscle is necessary because, joint health as well as wellness of like being able to pick up my daughter now that she's older and weighs more, able to move things around the house without being like, well, I can't do something because that's just like I can't clean under that because I can't lift it, or like scoot it. Um, so me changing for me personally, my health spectrum is more getting stronger, being more capable, but being also realistic of the fact that yeah, I would like to lose weight, not only just for looking better in the mirror to remember what I used to look like, but also just being like, some of this needs to go on a real note. Like, you can't stay here. So then, also if I gain muscle, I'm like, if I'm gaining muscle, the fat needs to go. You need to move. I don't need you. Um, but yeah, and then also, I guess, daily walks. My daughter recently got a scooter because she complained about walking to school. We don't live very far from the school, mind you, so she can walk. So we got our scooter, so now she scoots. So that's a lot faster than walking. So I've been having to keep up with her and having to do like a little, I call it's a jog. It's definitely not a run. Even my sprint is just a jog. But I call it my like back in the day, I told my husband it's my chubby shuffle because I'm not like I'm not. And mentally I am like we're running, but physically I'm just doing my best. But yeah, so knowing that I would like to keep up with her more in her activities and stuff like that. Yeah. Dennis states, but what if the muscle wants to live with a nice pillow? That's lovely. It can live with a nice pillow, but maybe a smaller, more compact pillow, depending on what you think fitness and health should be. Um, so for those watching, or even watching at a later date, if you had to sorry, if you had to define your version of health, since I already just shared mine more or less with a lot of words, in one sentence, what would it be? Would it be strength? Would it be, do you also have joint or aches that you're like, yeah, some of this fat needs to go, so that is part of it? Or is it spending time with people you care about that are more physically active, so you just want to be able to keep up? Um, Maybe you had a family member who their physical, mental, or emotional health took a dive at some point, or maybe it always was. So that impacted you a lot. So maybe you can type that in the chat too and share what you saw there. I personally have a family member that's a little bit negative, always been. But that's, I don't want to say that's who they are, but it's more like that's who they are. And it's those around them to encourage them to kind of like, hey, stop it. um, but yeah, so yeah, I think for that, to define your version of health in one sentence, I guess for me it would be getting stronger and feeling more my appropriate age because I'm only like 35. I shouldn't be feeling like I'm 55 and in terrible shape. It's like let's go back a little bit. So yeah. So yeah. Anybody in the chat would like to chime in on, like I said earlier, what they think health and wellness, maybe they have a family member or something occurred with them and they would like to share that, or maybe something occurred in their life on a personal note that they had to kind of overcome or realize, or maybe it opened up their mind to more health and wellness, physical, mental, emotional stuff. Like I said, I dealt with depression, anxiety when I was younger, so mental health has always been something more in the forefront of my mind, just growing up, knowing that, oh, I have anxiety. Oh, that was a depressive episode. Wow, that hit like real hard. So growing up in that regard, yeah, that was something that so that's why when thinking of health, I not only think of physical, but I also think of mental and emotional health like right away, just because I had a personal experience with that. Dennis states, healthy to me is just being able to live day to day without regular discomfort and no chronic illness. All right, yeah, for a lot of people, that would probably be a good definition of health for those who are just like, yeah, that sounds right. We all know like chronic illnesses, they'll wipe you. That's a bummer. So for anybody out there watching who has a chronic illness, I feel you. I understand to an extent, and you do your best. And if you're watching this even after the live is done, tell us your hack. Tell us what has helped you. Maybe a brief description of your illness, maybe what you deal with on the daily, and then tell us what has actually helped. Because I would love to know, because things happen in everybody's life, but also what happens. I may know somebody who could benefit from that, or anybody who reads it later could also benefit from that. All right. So I think we're gonna call this one for today. But I thank everyone for coming and joining in the chat. We explored health a bit through society's lens, talking about like influencers and the beginning ideal body image stuff, but like back in the 80s and bodybuilding and the 70s showed up, and then 80s pushed it forward with like um, was it Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, those type of images, and then the biohacking longevity science, where it seems like discipline and routine is great, but some of it is very strict and doesn't seem as reachable for like the regular person or those who may not want to be thinking they want to live to 120, 150, but more so want quality over quantity of life. And that includes wanting to eat cake or every so often, or having a piece of pie or piece of candy, or, having a piece of fried food at a fair every so often. So yeah, we talked about mental wellness, and then we talked a bit about our own personal meanings. I shared some of mine, and thank you for those in the chat who uh, shared some of their personal meanings of what health means to them. And then I think for the end of tonight, what would be write in the chat what sums up your definition of health tonight? Is it physical? Is it mental health? Is it balance? And if you hadn't already, let me know as well as what your define your version of health in one sentence. Like, what does health actually mean to you? Dennis states, excited to see what I missed. Yes, the lives can be rewatched, and I will eventually also make an abridged version that will be more like the 20-25 minute of all the good stuff, the meat, and stuff in the chat, and as well as what chat says, as well as my own personal opinions and keeping the flow going. So if you're someone who maybe not always wanting to hear a 45 or 60-minute spiel, or I love the conversation. I love when you guys interact and give me feedback. But in case that's not your thing, the next few weeks you will start seeing, if you subscribe, like and subscribe as always, but you'll start seeing the abridged version show up, which will be about 20-25 minutes. I'll make sure to make it a little bit entertaining as well. So we'll throw some memes in there, some pictures, things like that to make some of my quote unquote jokes, if I do have some. I'm not sure when I talk if I do. Yeah, things hit more. And so if you don't want to watch a full long live or rewatch one, those will eventually be up too. For Cardo State, they should be longer, 2 hours minimum. Actually, speaking of making lives longer, I will coming up be starting was it game nights, Thursday game nights from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. I'm not sure exactly if this Thursday will be one, but definitely if you're not subscribed, subscribe, as well as go to my Instagram and follow me there. I will definitely be putting a list more or less of what the schedule will be like in October for the Thursday game nights, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. while I'll be playing games. I would love you guys to show up in the lives, and then chat, maybe give me pointers, or even tell me some things you want me to do in the game that would be entertaining, or you just want to know what does this do if you do it. So yes, follow me, subscribe here. More videos will be coming, as well as some interesting videos, I think mid-October, which I am currently going to label Culture War Wednesday. More so, we'll be talking about religion and Christianity, things that I grew up with that in hindsight, I'm like, what was that about? And I think things that a lot of us who grew up in churches in general, I'll be researching things, figuring out who actually created what, why was it used, who remembers all of this, and how some of the stuff was weird, and and also being having that gone through in childhood, out everything, how that shapes us later on in life in some aspects. So those will also be coming out probably. That video series will not be live, but it will be a video series coming out probably more or less mid to late October, on Wednesdays. But the games will be on Thursday game nights, 7 p.m., 9 p.m. Like I said, not sure if they'll be starting this Thursday or next, but follow me on Instagram and then subscribe here, of course, and I'll put the full schedule when I decide on it, probably tomorrow, um, on Instagram. So it'll be posted and ready so you can see what the games are and then look them up if you're interested. so you know which ones you're particularly interested. Although I would love for you guys, all of you, whoever would like to show up, just to show up all the time to have fun and chat and have a fun game night and stuff like that. Dennis said, drop the upcoming top of the game night. Well, you will, like I said, you will have to follow me on Instagram, where I will actually be putting the full post and have it all for October set up there. So yeah, if you enjoyed this conversation, remember to like the video, please, because that really helps the algorithm say, oh, people like this. Comment afterwards if you would like to. That probably helps. I will comment back, of course, and I may actually go back and look at some of the information I looked up in preparation for this video, and any of the videos that I found particularly interesting, I'll probably drop them in the comments on a pinned comment from me. And then join me next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Pacific time. I'm not sure what our topic will be, but like always, it'll be interesting. It'll be fun. It'll be conversational for sure. And I love to get all of us share our insights and opinions and kind of get a look on the matter. Yeah, so we'll look into something else that really matters to all of us, and I'll figure it out. Leave a comment if you're like, hey, I would love to talk about this. Leave it on this video and let me know. But once again, thank you all for showing up. Even if you were late, thank you very much for showing up, and tune in for the abridged versions coming later on in the channel in the upcoming weeks after I edit them and get them flowing. It's a process. So thank you very much, and I'll see you next time. Bye.